Okay, so there's this guy, and he's a big guy. He was an ex-offensive lineman. Then he became a head coach in the NFL for the Oakland Raiders. He wore a lot of bad 70s clothes, and he was the head coach of this team. It was just a hit-you-in-the-mouth, crazy football team. And then he gets out, and then the next thing you know, he's in these beer commercials, and he's busting through walls, and he becomes a broadcaster, and he says boom and whap, and he's drawn on a telestrator, and he gets really loud, and he gets really fast.
That's the old body slam, you know, like they do in wrestling. Boom!
He rides around in a bus. He doesn't like being in a plane across the country, going from town to town, game to game, city to city. People can't get close enough to him, but he's kind of a loner. He's a guy that likes his privacy, but on Sunday, he will light up your television screen with words that aren't even words.
Boom, right there, that's a wham block.
A great hand for the Madden family. We want to welcome everybody to a very special night. What we hope is a night for memory and appreciation, for reflection and for tribute. One more Monday night in Oakland, a celebration of John Madden, the majesty of his life and legacy. I'm Tom Rinaldi from Fox Sports. We are thrilled that you're going to spend your Valentine's Day evening, as it should be, in a celebration of love for all of us here gathered together in memory of John Madden. I'm the co-director and executive producer of the documentary All Madden. Our goal all along in telling this part of John's journey was that he might be able to have the opportunity to see it, and surely enough he did, gathered with family on Christmas morning at his home in Pleasanton. And sure enough, when it was over, he polled everybody in the room and asked, what did you think? What was your favorite part? And ultimately everybody said, well, Dad, what did you think? And we were thrilled that the family and John had the opportunity to see it just 3 days before he passed. We've assembled our own All Madden roster tonight, this fantastic lineup of speakers you see behind me, each with a unique connection to John. We'll hear from them, we'll hear some music, we'll watch some wonderful curated clips that celebrate John in different ways. You know, in working on the documentary, we made 38 requests for interviews. We got 38 yeses back. That's pretty unusual in our line of work. We really feel, though, that we could have made hundreds of requests and gotten hundreds of yeses. One thing we didn't ask anybody to do was to sing. If we had, we certainly would have started with the first voice you will hear next. An absolute Raider great. Super Bowl rings, 13 seasons, and a member of the very first All Madden team. Would you please welcome Henry Lawrence?
Good evening. I could not stand here and not take the opportunity to say that Coach John Madden was a giant, not just among men, but among everyone. He was a man that could relate to the little guy and the big guy. And he didn't pull the punches. He was real. And it burns in my mind. It's telling me, we're looking at films and I'm hitting the guy, and he said, that's it, you got to hit one, you got to hit a nothing, and a nothing. And we were looking at a film one day, and the referee had thrown a flag on me, and so I was all up in his face, and Coach turned the film out. He said, hey, what are you saying to that ref out there? And I told him what I said. He said, yeah. So through all of those things, we had a dark period that was the darkest part of my NFL, because we had a blow-up. And my roommate, Morris Bradshaw, told me, y'all to talk to him, and I didn't get a chance to. And we had a blow up on the field, so we didn't speak. You know, we said, hey, you know, and I couldn't stand it. So I just want to mention that no man is too great or too big to ask for forgiveness. And no man is too big or too great to give it. Well, I went in the middle of Coach Madden's meeting, and I said, Coach, I got to talk to you. He jumped up and said, yeah. So I said, Coach, you got to forgive me. He said, oh, don't forget. He said, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I know what I'm saying. He said, you're like a son to me. You could be great. He said, my boys look at you like their brother. And I said, Coach, I got it. You know, and we were back to normal. And I had to tell that because that was the darkest period of my NFL career. Not a game, but it was just that personal relationship that we had. And I want to say to somebody out there, you need to say, forgive me too, or forgive, please do it. Because time, we don't know how much we got. This song, I think, because he looked beyond what I was and what I could be. He said, you can be. He looked beyond. He looked beyond a lot of people. So this song is dedicated to Coach Madden. Amazing grace shall always be my song of praise. For it was grace that bought my liberty. I do not know just why he came to love me so. He looked beyond all my faults and saw my needs. I shall forever lift my eyes to Calvary to view the cross where Jesus died for me. How marvelous the grace that caught my falling soul. He looked beyond all my faults and saw my needs. I shall forever lift my eyes to Calvary to view the cross where Jesus died for me. How marvelous the grace that caught my falling soul. He looked beyond all my faults and saw my needs. Rest in peace, Coach. He's coaching the Angels now. God bless.
The wonderful Henry Lawrence. Henry, thank you for sharing the gift of song tonight. From that kind of soul, from a great and a player, to someone with an enormous heart who also worked the sidelines in the Bay Area. A man who also understood how to build great connections with his players. Coached for 6 seasons for the San Francisco 49ers, 9 seasons in total. One of the best people you'll meet in all of football. Now a star of the NFL Network, please give a warm welcome to Steve Mariucci.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I feel a little bit like Ricky Henderson leading off over here. She did for so many years. I'm honored to be asked by the family to speak tonight. Former players, other coaches, broadcast colleagues, friends, family. And my relationship with John might be a little different We each have our own relationship with John, don't we? But my relationship with John started when I was coaching the Niners, and he was doing the broadcast booth, and we'd have production meetings. Well, my favorite production meetings, when I was the coach at the 49ers, and he'd come in, we'd be playing the Packers at Lambeau Field. He'd come on the bus. Now, show of hands, how many people have been on the bus? Oh, yeah. We would have our production meeting on the bus. And my mom would bring pasties from Iron Mountain, because I'm from there, and ketchup and napkins, and we would drive around the neighborhood on the bus, and I show them where Reggie White lives, and Brett Favre, and Mike Holmgren's over there, and we drive down my cul-de-sac, and the kids start coming out, and they're banging on the bus, Madden's here, Madden's here. We talk more about the food and the pasties than we did about Jerry Rice and Steve Young and Brett Favre, because you know John liked to eat. And every time he did that, he made sure my mom would bring those pasties. But I got to know John after I got done coaching, as a friend. In fact, the last time I golfed was with John Madden. Yeah, that's us over there, Ruby Hills. Some of you have been there before. So neither one of us was very good. So we golfed 4 holes. And he said, "You're hungry?" I go, "Yeah, you?" He took a right, and we went into the clubhouse. So for the whole day, we told stories, and we ate, and we waited for everybody to get done. And that's how we bonded. But you know what? That was the last time I quit golf. I think he might have too. So we said, we got to do something else. What are we going to do? Now what? Let's play more bocce ball. We got some bocce ball. And he says, yeah. You know, John never said, yeah, 1 yeah. He always said, yeah, or 3 yeahs, right? He says, yeah, that's good exercise. You bend down and you stretch your back, and then you walk 80 feet, and that's good exercise. And Mooch, it's the only sport we can eat pizza and play at the same time. You can't do that with football. You can't do it with swimming. So let's play some more bocce ball. So many of you have seen in the Bay Area the Madden Mariucci bocce ball event. And I will say, John was not the best bocce ball player in the family. Who was the best? Virginia, sitting right over here. She was the best bocce ball player. Right there. Who was second best? Sam, the grandson. He was on my team. And then Mike and Joe were brutally average, and John was down below that. And we would compete, never on the same team. I was NFC, he was AFC. And for over 2 decades, we raised money for the Bay Area. Everybody know John's a big man, it's a big personality, but I hope you know that he had the biggest heart of all. We had fun eating pizza, playing bocce, laughing, but we were able to raise over $8 million for some Bay Area charities. 22 years. That's how long we did this. Over $1 million for Special Olympics of Northern California. Type 1 diabetes, UCSF artificial pancreas. Tri-Valley football. We were both on the player safety advisory panel, so we would provide new helmets for the football players. Concussions are an issue, right? Boys and Girls Club, football camp for the stars, Down syndrome kids. We did a lot, and we had a lot of fun doing it. I don't know why you wore that thing. I mean, look at that shirt right there. I mean, and that's Tom Albanese, and we had Raiders would go, Niners would go, celebrities were there, actors, Willie Mays, you name it. Everybody made it to our events because it was a lot of fun and we raised a lot of good money. But I'm going to cut to the one photograph that I would like to tell a quick story about. There's John when he tried to broadcast bocce ball. You ever try to do that? The first and only broadcast. He did the play-by-play for our bocce. He was pretty good at it. All right. And there's John, and then there's Gilmetti. John was not the best guy in the team, but he had to get ringers like Jim Gilmetti, who's sitting over here, to play on his team. And that team won 3. My team won 3 times out of 22 years. It was very competitive, and that's our check to David Solo and Special Olympics every year. We would have a lot of fun supporting all these different charities. There's John handing out the trophy that he didn't win. In fact, Frank Pollock's in that photograph. He's the line coach of the Bengals. He was in the Super Bowl yesterday. So we had a lot of fun. Those are the football players that came to our events, and we supported them, and they supported us. And we had a lot of fun. One year he even hired nuns. Okay, the sisters came. John thought that they would pray for his team, and maybe they'd win. Little bit did he know that I was an altar boy in grade school, and I was recruiting them to pray for my team. Well, neither one of us won that year. There's one photo I want to tell you a story about. Because John was never shy, right here. When it came to a camera or a microphone or people listening to him, that's when he was at his best. I think this is Kevin the Rat. And Kevin asked him something completely different than what John wanted to talk about. So people were standing around, and there was national TV, radio, local TV and radio. And John asked him a question. He says, "Do you know how bocce ball came to America?" And the guy said, "Well, I don't know. He said, let me tell you how it came. In 1492, Christopher Columbus brought it over there. When he was trying to discover America, he had bocce balls on the ships. You know, the 3 ships, the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria, they each had their own set over there. And every now and then, they would play up on the wooden deck, and then they'd start playing, and all those little Italian guys, Christopher Columbus is Italian guy, he's short like you, Mooch, and they play a lot. And he said, all of a sudden they're there, and then a wave would come, and boom, the balls would go flying all over the place and over the port side, and then you'd have to pick up the balls and play them. And then they start playing a little bit again and put the balls back, and then all of a sudden here comes another wave, and then boom, here comes the balls are flying over the starboard side. And he says sometimes they would hook the ships up together, tie them all up like you do at Lake Havasu, and they'd have a round-robin tournament. And you would have the Italians and the Spaniards and all these guys playing bocce ball against each other. And I went, what? And everybody was going, wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. That's awesome. And they believed him. They believed him because John Madden said it. And what John Madden says is true. And when John Madden says the janitor at the Pro Football Hall of Fame turns off the lights at night and the bus talk to each other, it's true because John said it. And when he says that the turkey on Thanksgiving has 6 or 8 legs, it's true because John said it. And when those Gatorade buckets over there hanging out all year, they had a baby bucket, you believe it because John said it. And when John says he loves his family and his friends, and he loves the Bay Area and helping people, you believe it because he said it and he lived it. And when he says he loved the Raiders and football, you believe it. And I know he loved bocce. So, the next time you pick up a bocce ball, and I know everybody in the Bay Area plays bocce ball, whether it's at Campo de Bocce or it's in your backyard, and you want to have bragging rights with your family and your friends. You pick up that ball, and you know everybody's watching, and it's a big shot. I want you to take a deep breath and think, this one's for John. You let her rip, and John's going to be up there smiling. Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the evening.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mooch. A man who knew how to form bonds with his players, and that's also in John's image. One of his greatest gifts, the relationships that he forged with those players on his rosters and how much they meant to him. And as we see and hear now, those players will never forget it.
My first impression of John was a gentle giant with a personality.
Hey! Hey, throw the damn flag!
John Madden really had a commanding presence. I mean, he was humorous, he was bright, he was intense. He was everything you could ever want in a coach.
He was great with players. He wanted to win, and he believed in the Raiders. He believed in silver and black.
He had the right attitude. He was smart. He was a very good technique guy. He knew what he was doing. That's the key.
There's not many coaches. You can't find one that looked and acted like John Madden.
Hey, Johnson, get in the huddle!
On the sidelines, up and down, trying to get a referee's attention. Get over here!
You don't even watch your time, you sit back there and just throw it. You ever call one on them?
There was no doubt when he was getting upset. The world knew it.
He was just so animated, verbally, physically, and in every way.
That son of a...
Man, don't get excited, John. Relax.
Son of a...
But that was John. He got more excited than the players.
He had the passion and the fire. He could psych you up by just talking to you. It fired us up. Loved him.
But he had a soft side to him, too. He cared about his players. He loved his players.
Coach Madden had 3 rules.
When I talk, nobody talks.
Be on time and go like hell when I ask you to.
No hair codes, no dress codes, no curfews. He gave us a lot of room to be the kind of player that we wanted to be on the field, be the kind of person we wanted to be off the field.
Great mentor. He would say the right thing to me before a game and set me off.
Let's start off and stay after the whole game. Let's
He knew what buttons to push on each guy to motivate him.
I've always said that John's strong suit as a coach was not X's and O's, but his strong suit was the way that he handled us and communicated with us and kept us going in the right direction.
He understood each player as they were, the person that they were.
He loved everybody. He pulled for everybody. He worked for everybody. And he had no problem helping anybody. He was just a phenomenal person.
John helped raise us. He was a lineman at heart. I love John Madden. John was great for us. He was for the players. He would do anything for the players. John Madden.
Behind every great coach is, in this case, maybe even a greater woman. Would everyone who's gathered here please show their appreciation and affection for the fantastic Virginia Madden. Virginia, the natural question to ask, what does it mean to you to be in this space, in this stadium, on this field again?
Everything in the world. It means so much. When John passed, I said, I want to have a gathering at the Coliseum. I know he's up there, and I know he's smiling down on all of his players that are here, and all of you people, the fans that supported him for so many years.
The notion that we heard Steve Mariucci touch on, Virginia, for all the different things John is known for, the enormous philanthropy and charity that he and you and the Madden family have tried to show toward the city and the people of Oakland. And I know there were some things you wanted to share about that as well, Virginia.
Well, John and I had separate banking accounts. So I kept squirreling away money, and I saved quite a bit. So I am going to match with my own personal check up to $1 million of all the money that's raised tonight. And John believes in the town of Oakland. He believed in the Coliseum. Most of all, he believed in the Raiders. I believe in the Raiders. The Oakland Raiders. Oakland needs a football team.
Virginia just said, ask me another question because I'm on a roll. Virginia, one more for those who may not have caught it. You gave such a great response. I asked you when we put the documentary together, John and how he handled losing. And you talked about the fact that people would bring up this notion that you can't win them all.
That's BS. I never saw a reason to lose a game. I never understood losing. In bocce or anything, I can't tolerate losing.
One last thing, Virginia. I don't know that you could say it any better than you already did, but your simple message to all the Oakland Raider fans all over the country, not just the ones who are gathered here and representing Raider Nation, but your message to Raider Nation on behalf of you, John, and the Maddens.
You know, he always meant a lot to me because we were married 62 years. Some of it, most of it, was great. Some were not so great. But the thing is you just have no idea how much your husband means to so many people. You know, the magazine that came out, you people here tonight, And the letters that I have been getting is just overwhelming. I can't believe that he can't pop up. He's everywhere. And I just can't get over the fact that he's not going to be here. You know, it hasn't sunk.
But he forever will be here and in the hearts of so many whose lives he touched. Virginia Madden, everybody. One more.
Are these the gorillas? Are you up here somewhere, the gorillas? Where? I love you guys.
Oh, Virginia Madden, everybody. John shared that gift to connect with people, ultimately from a coach to then a broadcaster. Maybe nobody ever did it better than John Madden did. Maybe nobody ever will again, because at heart he was a teacher. And he used a very special tool, essentially taking a coach's chalkboard and drawing all over your TV screen to do it. Take a look.
I'll show you how I'm going to line them up right here. Solomon, from this point, starts out, runs a corner pattern there, and that's the one that got him down to the goal line. Bad circle. Burt, he lines up cockeyed. Offsides, it's okay in this team. Line up anywhere you want. The safety comes over, and look at this middle here. That's the area that they're going to try and hit. See, now Boomer can take the ball here. He could roll out left. They bring from the outside, and boom, two up the middle. It's a tethered blimp. See this here? It's tethered. These lines hold it still, so it stays there. This means nothing. That's the camera. Whap, he comes here. Marshall, whap, he comes here. Long, whap, he comes here. Where are you going to run on this thing? Then Keith Bishop leads through here in the linebacker. I got too many scratches in there. And then if you're going to pass like that, boom, 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 we just keep going back like this.
You broke your chalk.
Part of the deal. Like this is a father bucket. This is a mother bucket. And since the last game, they had a baby bucket. So this is a baby bucket. This guy crosses here. He crosses here. They have no idea where we are, who we are, where we're coming from, or who we're throwing to.
It scares me, but I understand it completely.
Well, if anyone understands how to broadcast and to connect, it's our next guest who joins us on tape. He's been a leading voice across so many sports and remains the leading voice of CBS Sports. Please watch this tribute from Jim Nantz.
Friends, I just wanted to say a quick word about John. And I feel like in some respects I'm channeling Pat Summerall, because I had the great honor of being Pat's understudy for a good 10 years and worked a lot with him and got to hear firsthand so much about that relationship and how much he treasured John's friendship. Of course, John would be the eulogist at Pat's service back in 2013, and their unbreakable bond was something very special to see. And I had the chance down here at Pebble Beach, just across the way where John loved coming down here at the base of Ocean Avenue and seeing his buddies down here, Furman and Dominic, Carl. They were like brothers, I know. But my biggest takeaway from John was not about the video game, which was special. It's not about the broadcasting career, which is the best of all time. It's not about the Hall of Fame coaching career, which says it all, Hall of Fame. It was about John the person and how he treated people. He was a great observer of people. He loved to people watch, and he loved to meet with complete strangers. Gave them kindness, gave them respect and dignity, had time for people. And that's a special person in my book. All those journeys across the country on the Madden Cruiser, stopping off in all these little towns across America, the word got out rather quickly that John was paying a visit. And of course, we know what would happen. He'd come out of some coffee shop and there'd be a line of people there to take a picture, to shake his hand, to get his autograph, and he had time for them all. Isn't that a wonderful thing that we all should be able to take from that and try to put into our lives? Time. It's the greatest currency of all. And John had it. There's never enough to go around. There's never enough time. But he had time for people. And he managed that better than anybody ever saw. What a giant. From his CBS family, from all the way back at the beginning of his broadcasting career, there's a few of us still around. And I just want to be able to say for a moment that, John, you were loved by CBS. Pat Summerall loved you. And I loved being able to have a front row seat watching the two of you, and later just watching you and the way that you handled life. It was a true lesson for me and for millions of people you touched. God bless you forever, John, and thank you for the difference that you made.
Well said, as usual, by Jim Nance. Well, from one legend in broadcasting to another, and to a true pioneer who joins us next. The first woman to receive the Pete Rozelle Award, given by the Pro Football Hall of Fame, also a member of the Sports Writers and Sportscasters Hall of Fame, an absolute legend in her own right. Please, a warm welcome for Leslie Visser.
Hello, Raider Nation. So great. It is so great to be here. And as Jim Nance just alluded to, at CBS, you know, we thought he belonged to us, and he belonged to every network. He belonged to America. Most of all, he belonged to you. Thank you so much for having me. To Virginia and Mike and Joe and the whole family, we know that John never had a losing season, and he never had one with his family either. It's been really a privilege to get to know all of you. Before I got to know John and all of you so well, there were two things I was terrified of: John Madden himself and the black hole. Now, I was, but I would say John, as we know, turned out to be such a great teacher and communicator and had such a giant heart. And your Princess of Darkness, Amy Trask, about 30 years ago, Amy, we love her. Amy said, "No, I'll take you to the black hole." And I said, "Gosh, Amy, I don't know if that's such a great idea." And we went over to see you. Gorilla, your mom was probably in that outfit back then, 30 years ago. And they were all yelling, "Hey, Amy, go Raiders." So, like everyone, I have grown to love you guys. As Jim Nance kind of mentioned, when he came to CBS, he changed CBS. He changed broadcasting the same way he changed everything he did. And at one point, John insisted that we have seminars before our seminars. And Ted Shaker, who's here, our executive producer, suddenly we were going to like Pebble Beach and Napa Valley, but John didn't want to drink wine then or golf. He wanted to talk about defense and go over plays hour after hour after hour. And you saw in that picture, like Randy Cross and Greg Gumbel would look at him cross-eyed. But we all learned a lot about football, and we cherish that. It was so much like all of you, John taught all of us. Anyone who rode the bus knew that the bus was about football, food, looking out the window, stopping for a Little League game or a coffee shop, more food, and mostly football. I was sharing before with some of the coaches how I remember one time we were coming here to a game, and we're coming through Utah, and John just looked out the window, you know, buses bouncing John looked out the window and said, dark chocolate. I don't get it. It's like they got halfway to milk and quit. And you all know that's how his mind worked. Well, John had a phase where he insisted that I learn the then Washington Redskins counter tray. And we would be on that bus, and he would play it over and over and over. And he would quiz me, okay, what happens to the fullback after they pull? Okay, what is John Riggins doing? So he would go over this and quiz me. And finally, I said, you know what? I get it. And I can diagram it. Okay, coaches? You guys are going to be horrified. But, okay, so I sat down at that table, on the bus. And I did all the X's and the O's. And I had Grimm and Jacoby going one way, and then, Riggins would do that little dance to like the Iggy Shuffle, dance to the left, dance to the right. And so I was really proud of myself, and I handed it to John, and he looked down for like 4 agonizing seconds, and he said, I don't believe that formation has ever been seen in the history of the NFL. Which was kind of crushing. All right, maybe I had Bostic out at wide receiver or something, but, I did the best I could. As you know, John was so generous to everyone with his time and who he was. I remember one Christmas in New York, he gave all my girlfriends the bus, the Madden Cruiser, Dave and Willie driving, to go around to bars in New York. And there were about 15 or 20 of us. And first we went over to the Dakota, and John was the host, I guess. And his idea of hosting 20 women over at the Dakota was to give each of us a paper cup, and he went around with a big bottle of Jack Daniels, poured each of us, a shot, and that was it. And then he walked us out on East 72nd to where the Madden Cruiser was, and we all got on the bus. And as the bus was pulling away, John was yelling in the middle of the street, any of you single girls who can't get lucky Christmas week going around on the Madden Cruiser to bars, you are losers, losers. Yelling this as the bus is pulling away. But as you all know, John was up for anything. Remember the Super Bowl in Minnesota? I was in Minneapolis in '92, and John decided we all had to go ice fishing, which, Mike, you were on that, right? I can't remember if Joe, you were probably on it too. You were probably on it too. And remember, we first had to get those ridiculous outfits. And of course, it was no degrees in February in Minnesota, and we drove the Madden Cruiser right up to Mille Lacs, right to the edge of the ice, and we all got out, and Richie Zions, who also worked with us, weighed about what I did, 125 pounds. We were freezing, and John said we could not have those warming huts that everybody who ice fishes has, and John said we couldn't have them because I can't repeat the language, but it was something like, only M-effing chicken M-effing people have warming huts. And we would sit on turned over buckets. And I mean, really, none of us knew how to fish. It was ridiculous. I think Mike reminded me that we actually didn't catch anything, but some guy 3 warming huts down gave us some walleye. And Joe and Mike, you'll remember that Lance Sparrow, great producer, he fried up those walleyes on the Madden Cruiser all the way back to Minneapolis, and we all said it was the best fish. Oh, there he is. Hi, Lance. So great. And there's Richie. They all remember it. Lance did such a great job frying up that walleye. So these are all the memories that so many colleagues, players, family, everybody has with John. John, of course, at heart, we all know, was a teacher. And I remember that one time the bus stopped in Las Vegas on its way to the game, and there was a heavyweight fight that was preparing. And John said, all you have to do at a heavyweight fight is just call everybody champ. Like, no matter who you see. Hey, champ. Hey, champ. I mean, there'd be like a 100-year-old woman. Hey, champ. Hey, champ. But he just loved, he just loved anything and everything. And he so willingly gave to all his friends and his colleagues at all the networks and his family. And I want to tell you one more story, I guess, and then I'll just thank you. There was one time the bus stopped in Fort Worth to fuel up, and all of you who've been on the bus know that the bus didn't eat that often, but we stopped in Fort Worth, and John saw this famous place that sold saddles, like not far from where we were fueling up, and he said to me, I have got to get a saddle. And, I'd never ridden a horse in my life. And next thing you know, I've got this really expensive hand-tooled saddle that we put on the bus. Oh, there it is. That's the only time. It sits in my living room. And he used to say, well, Virginia rides. Virginia has ridden her whole life. But that was it. I spent so if anybody wants to buy a saddle, I have one in my living room. Thank you, John. So thanks so much to all of you. It's been really a privilege. And I want to tell you that we know the autumn wind is a pirate, but you, Raider Nation, and the family and the players, you have been the wind beneath his wings. Thank you.
Leslie Visser, thank you so much for that great tribute, Leslie, and the memories. As much as John devoted his life to football, and as we're hearing over and over, to food, these were not his only passions. He also liked music. And we heard earlier from the wonderful Henry Lawrence. Now let's hear from another friend of John's. Sending his tribute by video, here's the fantastic guitarist, singer, and member of the legendary E Street Band, Nils Lofgren.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nils Lofgren. My wife Amy and I send our love and gratitude to Virginia, Mike and Joe, and family. The life you helped John create and share with us all remains magnificent. Thank you. Now, Amy and I feel blessed to have John as a friend for so long. I first met John back in 1985, and composing original rock and roll for the all Madden team was exciting, but getting to know John as a friend meant so much more to me. And it was actually Amy who finally got John to a Bruce Springsteen and E Street Band show. He absolutely loved it. Now, I'm used to seeing that huge Madden grin, but to see it for 3 hours straight was a memorable gift. And John did agree, Bruce is definitely all Madden. So, of course, we shed our tears, but still in our hearts, let's smile and rejoice that we've all been touched and inspired by John's wonderful life. So with much love and respect to John, Virginia, and family, to all here tonight, I sing this song to honor our dear friend, the great John Madden. The morning sun, it don't shine as bright, the evening stars are dim tonight. Your ancient voice stills my fearful soul. I miss you, John. We miss you, John. I pound my nails, love my wife and kids. My gifts are not as grand as yours. Still this, your grit and soul, my friend, heals ease our troubled hearts. We miss you, John. We love you, John. We miss you, Pat, Al Davis, Kenny Stabler, you sure could play. I miss you, Dad, your gentle spirit way. Still life is grand. We owe so much to you. We miss you all. We miss you, John. God bless you, brother. We love you, John.
What a lovely musical tribute there from the great Nils Lofgren. Our next message and tribute is also on video, not musical. We didn't ask him to sing, but just to share a memory of what John Madden means to him and his career and his life. Here's the Hall of Famer, Peyton Manning.
Omaha!
My grandfather was a huge football fan, obviously, loved watching his grandchildren play. In my rookie year, we weren't very good, obviously, 3-13. It's like every other week he would ask me, are Madden and Summerall doing the game Sunday? And I said, Papa, no, they're not. We're playing the Bengals, who are 1-9. Madden and Summerall just don't do those games. Next thing you know, we were playing the Cowboys. They, of course, had Aikman, Emmett, Dion. That was a big deal. But the Madden Summerall combination coming to town was just as big.
You know, you think of Peyton Manning, and he reminds you so much of his dad, Archie Manning, and what a job they did in raising him. And I mean, he's what it's all about. And he's kind of my new favorite player, if that makes any sense.
It does, and I can see why.
No, it was a great memory. It was a great, in our building, we felt like we have a chance to be something special, but we can't go out there and say that. But when John Madden comes in and says it, okay, this must be real.
They're on their way to something big, to something special.
We thank Peyton for that tribute. Well, when John left coaching and then left broadcasting, he never left football. He still remained connected to so many involved in the game, and in particular to coaches, like our next speaker. A Super Bowl champion, an NFL Man of the Year as a player, a two-time NFL Coach of the Year. Please welcome the head coach of the now Washington Commanders, the great Coach Ron Rivera.
Thank you. I want to make sure I thank the Madden family for allowing me to come here and pay tribute to Coach Madden. You know, there are many monikers, many titles you can associate with John Madden. Division-winning coach, conference-winning coach, Super Bowl champion coach, and Hall of Fame coach. But to me, he was coach. I didn't play for him, but I was one of his coaches. I was fortunate enough to have reached out to Coach Madden after my second season and asked him if I could come visit with him, if I could talk with him, if I can listen and learn from him. So he allowed me to come see him in Pleasanton, California. But before I came, he said, Ron, do me a favor. I know you got this record of 3-13 of games decided by 6 points or less. What I'd like you to do is go back and look at those 13 losses and think about what you could have done differently. So I did. I went back, looked at those games. I wrote out a nice little report, about 15 pages, and I bring it to Coach. So I meet him at his office. We sit down, start talking. And then I said, hey, Coach, I got that little homework you gave me. He looked at it and said, it's not for me. What'd you learn? So I started thinking about it, and I said, well, I was doing the right thing. I was going by the book. He looked at me and said, what book? He said, Ron, you've played enough football. You've coached enough football. Go by your gut. Go by your instincts. Go by what you know. So for the most part, I went back. I thought about those things. And as we started the 2013 season, my third season in the league, I started going for it on fourth down. Inside their 30, got an opportunity to get a first down, continue the drive, and I did it. And it worked. And then I did it again, and it worked again. And then before I knew it, I was Riverboat Ron. I was going for it on fourth downs. I was doing things that were different. And I get a phone call. It's Coach Madden. I said, hey, Coach, how you doing? He said, Ron, I wanted you to go by your instincts. I didn't want you to get carried away. I said, Coach, I was just doing what you told me. I just felt we could do that. He said, yeah, but you know what? You got to do it the right time, not all the time. But that was Coach. He had this way of bringing you back in. But one of the really cool moments during the 2013 season, my third season when things really started to get better for us, we played the 49ers in San Francisco, and we beat them 13-9. I knew you'd like that, Raider Nation. But he called me and he was so excited. He said, Ron, that's what I'm talking about. Physical, downhill football, smash mouth football at the point of attack. Plus, I like the fact that you kicked there. And I said, I appreciate that, Coach. But it really got to me. It really made me feel like I've accomplished something. I learned something. And I was getting it from him. His support, his guidance was truly important to me. And it meant a lot. And that year I did go on, and I was fortunate enough to win the NFL Coach of the Year. And thank you. And a couple days later, I called Coach, and I said, look, I know I haven't learned everything. The award is yours as much as it's mine. I want to come see you again. And I wanted to talk about sustaining success. And he invited me back, and we got an opportunity to spend some more time together. But those moments, those opportunities to spend time with him meant a lot. And it has really helped me as I've gone through my coaching career. When I was a player, I got the opportunity to get on the bus. We were in the playoffs. We're getting ready to play New Orleans. And a few weeks before that, I got leg whipped, fractured my leg. I had a plateau fracture just below the joint, the knee joint. And I missed the game. I was getting ready for the playoffs, and Coach comes in. He had heard I was going to play. So he comes in and he sees me in the locker room. He says, hey, come over here, kid. So we start to talk. He said, how's the knee? I said, well, it's pretty good. The doctor said I should be able to play on Sunday. He said, really, did it hurt? I said, oh, it hurt a lot, Coach. It really did. So he does the game Sunday. He talks about me. He mentions me playing with a broken leg. And after the game, I get home that evening, and my mom calls me, and she's scared to death. I said, what's wrong? She goes, well, Coach Madden said you were playing with a broken leg. I thought you said you were fine. I said, Mom, I'm okay. Trust me. That's just Coach giving me little props and making me seem like I'm some sort of tough guy. But he had this way of, expressing himself. And it was stuff like that that you really appreciated, because he really did know how to make you look good, especially to your mom. When I was younger, when I was 15 years old, and they had just won Super Bowl IX, it was the first opportunity I had to meet Coach Madden. He and his family were down in Monterey, California. Here I was, 15 years old. I see Coach Madden. I run up, introduce myself, and we start talking. he gave me the time of day, spent a little bit of time talking with me. We talked for about 2-3 minutes. And I said, you know, Coach, I'm going to be in the NFL. And he looked at me and said, hey, kid, go with your gut. And that was the first time I heard that expression. I never forgot it. He wrote me out an autograph, best wishes and good luck. And he handed it to me, and he said, kid, go with your gut. And the thing that I learned back then, and he was coaching me then, and I didn't realize it, he was showing me what it meant and what you're supposed to do as a coach, and that's give back and give your time to people. And it's a little lesson I learned, but I never forgot that, and I really, truly appreciated that. That's one of the things about Coach Madden that I will always remember, and I will never forget, that he gave you his time. He was special, and he'll always be remembered. And thank you, Virginia, for sharing him with us. I appreciate that. Thank you, Raider Nation.
Ron Rivera, wonderful memories and lessons and remarks, Ron. Well, there were so many players John Madden connected with, but perhaps no one more than a certain quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. Together, they could turn a simple production meeting into an hour-long discussion that virtually served the broadcast not at all, but deepened a bond that remains to this day. So let's watch this tribute to John from the Hall of Famer, Brett Favre.
You know, John Madden, to me, it's funny because generationally, like my daughter, my youngest daughter is 22. She knows who John Madden is, but she doesn't know that John Madden was a coach. She relates to John Madden with a video game. And my nephew is 17, and he's like a Madden guru. But he's like, I was telling him not too long ago, his name's Casey. I said, Casey, did you know Madden was a coach? He's like, really? People generationally everyone knows who Madden is, but like my generation and obviously before, I just think of him being really boisterous on the sidelines and excited, and that's the way he was in the booth. And he was a larger-than-life figure on the field, but an even larger-than-life figure in the booth. He brought to the booth, no disrespect to anyone else, but a rawness that I brought to the field. He said what came to mind at that time, and it was not scripted, and it was just, you know, I always say this about my career. When people watch me play, I think not from necessarily a play-by-play perspective, but just how I played and the joy. People said, that's the way I would play if I could play. And I think that you could say the same for John in the booth. It's like, boom, you know, wow. You know, Nate Newton eating a turkey leg, you know, I mean, he was drawing stuff on a diagram. It was just John Madden, and no one else could come close to doing what he could do in the booth. And so I think that's why people related to him so well, but also loved him. You know, John and I think the first game he did of mine, would be somewhere around 93 to 94. I don't remember the first game, but I do know that he probably did 20 or so games, if not more. First of all, what it meant when John Madden was doing your game, it meant you were on prime time, and that was a good thing. You had a chance that you knew everyone was watching. Regardless of who you were playing, where you were playing, John Madden and Pat Summerall were doing the game, you knew everyone was watching. So the typical protocol is, whether you're home or away, the day before the game, you meet with the commentators about the upcoming game, do's and don'ts, what do they look like, you know, how are you going to attack them, that type of stuff. Well, with John, we would talk an hour, but we would tell stories. Maybe the first thing we'd sit down, hey, how you doing, Coach? Good to see you again. And Coach would say, well, Brett, has anything changed from last week? No, Coach. Good. What about who's coming to the game? What about this? It would be non-football related. We would just start telling stories, and we would laugh. And our PR director at the time, Lee Rimmel, it was an older gentleman, and you may have met Lee back in the day. Lee would say, "We got to keep this on subject," and he would almost get angry that we would just laugh and tell stories, and there was other guys that were waiting to do their interview as well. And this was every single time that we played a game where John Madden was doing the booth commentating. So we had a special relationship, and I think, you know, people have asked me, why did you and John hit it off? I don't know the answer to that for certain, but I would think that he saw a little bit of himself in me, just a carefree, all shucks type of guy. And the way he was in the booth was the way I played on the field, and that's where that special bond came from. About John, and I said this immediately after he passed, I feel like that my career was supposed to be narrated by John Madden, and as I look back, it's as if it was. Now, he didn't do every game, but people relate me to John Madden, and I mean, I had so many people after John passed say sorry for your loss, almost as if he was my grandfather, and I take considerable pride in that because I love John. And I sensed the great relationship that we had, and I looked forward to him doing one of my games. For one reason, we were on prime time, but for the other reason, we got to spend time together. And he was a larger than life figure if you didn't know him, and he was even larger than life if you did know him. And I'm just thankful for my relationship with him.
A very heartfelt tribute there. We appreciate Brett Favre sending along those thoughts. Our next tribute also on tape to somebody who was pretty busy just last night, broadcasting to more than 100 million people doing the Super Bowl for NBC. Someone else close to John who shared the broadcast booth with him. On tape, here's Al Michaels.
To those of us lucky enough to have him as a friend and colleague, and to the millions who knew him through television, there were a lot of things that made John Madden one of a kind. But the common thread to all was what a great communicator he was.
Let's start off and stay after the whole game.
What a thoughtful listener. What a terrific teacher. As a coach, the numbers speak for themselves.
Go to the Super Bowl. Okay, play defense!
Even if a lot of fans today might not know he had the highest winning percentage of any coach who won 100 or more games.
John Madden's grin is from ear to ear on the shoulders of his players.
Then he turned to broadcasting and created a new template with a style that was original, often imitated but never duplicated.
Boom, we cross him. The left goes to the right goes to the left. This guy crosses here.
Lots of people behind a microphone have football knowledge.
He makes a little basketball twist there and pivot, and boom, the ball's there.
But he was an artist in making the complicated simple.
Give him a lane in there.
Making a complex game accessible, understandable, educational, and usually entertaining.
See how heat does come out of the top of your head just coming off the
The same can be said for his iconic video game. When the software people approached John about putting his name on their idea,
and if the defense
he didn't just say yes, he dove in and over the years worked with them to make sure that game was as close to the real deal as possible.
This is what the game of football is all about.
That people could truly learn the game he loved as they played it.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. I just didn't accept it.
All along the way, John's fear of flying compelled that he traveled around the country on his bus, exploring the hinterlands and flyover country at his own pace, genuinely connecting with people from every state in restaurants, rest stops, coffee shops, anywhere. It was like hitting the lottery to have John as my partner in the booth for 7 years on Monday and Sunday nights. But the best memories I'll take with me are just like our first meeting 46 years ago. Going out to dinner, or opening up a newspaper, and talking about history, geography, food, life, anything and everything in addition to football.
This has been the sweetest ride of them all.
John Madden made everyone around him better. He was a larger-than-life character. He was the one and only.
The great Al Michaels, we say thanks to Al. Our next speaker is a member of the Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame whose segments with John on KCBS were more than a fixture for listeners across so many years. They were must listen. More than a radio partner, he was a very dear friend. Please, a warm welcome for Stan Bunger.
You know, as Coach would have said, and he did say things like this often, how the hell did I end up here? I'm so thankful to the Madden family for having embraced me. To be here tonight with the family, with the great coaches, Leslie Visser, all of you, very special because John had that effect on all of us. You know, we're on hallowed ground here this evening because it's where the John Madden legend began. Now, everyone in America knows John as the Hall of Fame coach, the guy who sold light beer, the man who essentially invented the role of modern football analyst on television. You know, by the way, just Madden on the video game. But John also had an important career that only those of us lucky to call the Bay Area home know about. And here's the crazy part. That career lasted longer than any of the other ones I just mentioned. For more than 35 years, John Madden was part of morning radio here in the Bay Area. He started with Emperor Gene Nelson on the old KSFO. He moved on to KNBR with Frank Dill. And 25 years ago, Coach came over to KCBS to join Al Hart, Steve Bitker, and Susan Lee Taylor on the morning news. 3 years later, Al retired. I guess you could say I inherited John. It became part of my life. I'm not going to lie to you here. I was really nervous. I mean, it's John effing Madden. I got to show up for work every day and hold court with John Madden. So the bosses set up a phone call. I get on the line. I start babbling about how much I love sports and how my dad and my grandpa were football coaches and trying to just make sure that he understands that I know what I'm talking about. And Coach just waits. And he finally says, "All right, Stan, great. Talk to you tomorrow." And that's how it started. I don't remember what the first segment was about. Probably a little about football and a lot about whatever else was on Coach's mind. And that's how it went for nearly 20 years. My rough math says Coach did about 5,000 of these segments on KCBS. I can honestly say I don't remember a single one where it ended and we looked at each other in the studio and said, well, that sucked. No, it was quite the opposite. Steve and Susan and I were along for the ride every weekday morning. So was our audience. You never really knew where Coach was going to take that conversation. You knew it would be interesting. Listeners told us they'd be late for work. They'd stay in their cars to hear the end of what was supposed to be a 5-minute segment, but often ran much longer than that. Unlike the NFL broadcast where the game was the thing, on the radio, we really got to do something John Madden was really, really good at, and that was just hang out. It was about whatever John wanted to talk about. Our audience got to know John's crew. It was Dominic and Pliskin and Gilmetti and Carl the Cop. John Robinson would drop in for a cameo from time to time. Of course, Virginia and the boys and the grandkids and the dogs. Mrs. Crawford, the grandkids' 5th grade math teacher. Her little boy Brandon played football at Foothill. And he turned into a decent baseball player, too, you may remember, that Brandon Crawford. And, of course, there was Bocce. The Madden Mariucci tournament provided some great material because Coach loved nothing more than poking fun at somebody. Himself, but somebody else was even better. I was truly blessed at this point because it wasn't just the on-air stuff. Coach would say, mi casa, su casa, like a joke, but he really meant it. It took me a long time to realize that if John Madden accepted you into his circle, you were in. even if you pull crap like I did at the very first Madden Mariucci Bocce tournament that I attended, somehow, maybe not a coincidence, John's team and the KCBS team are paired up in the first round. And as fate would have it, the match ends up tied. So now a roll-off, one ball. And of course, it's got to be mano a mano. Me versus coach. He hates to lose. Maybe as much as Virginia hates to lose. And I believe it was Virginia who brought the nuns that one time, by the way, not John. I hate to lose, too. So now we're ready to go. John wins the coin flip, I guess, and he rolls first. It's a pretty good ball. It's do or die time for me. As soon as it leaves my hand, I know it's a winner. And then I go all NFL wide receiver, and I'm strutting, and I'm pumping, and I'm high-fiving, and I walk right by Coach, who has his hand out for a congratulatory handshake. You think he ever let me live that down? For many years, John would host a KCBS barbecue event at his facility in Pleasanton. We'd bring in a bunch of clients and a few listeners, and we'd roast a whole pig, and we'd eat like pigs, and Virginia would bake chocolate cakes, and Mike and Joe and Wendy and the grandkids would show up. It was a family hangout, and I think Coach really enjoyed it because in the world of Madden, if it involved food, hanging out, and some good BS, it was something really worth doing. So many people say they remember Maddenisms. There's a phrase, a made-up word, a philosophy. There were a lot of them. After his passing, I heard from so many people who told me the one that stuck with them, something that they still say every day. Our radio conversations were often funny because John Madden was a funny guy. But they were also often deep because John Madden was also a very serious guy. And if you want to talk about smart, don't even get started. I met and interviewed a lot of smart people in over 40 years as a broadcaster. I don't think I ever met one as smart as John Madden. I'm surrounded by NFL royalty here on the stage this evening, so I may be out of my lane, but I don't think it's too big a stretch to call John the conscience of the National Football League. He cared deeply about football, about the league. He wasn't afraid of calling it out when he thought things were being done wrong. And a lot of the things he cared deeply about when it came to pro football were things we would talk about on KCBS. A lot of conversations about head injuries. John was very serious about changing the way people in football approached that topic. We had a lot of talks about the people who played the game. I was laughing listening to the Brett Favre video because Brett's 27 retirements and unretirements were part of the conversation with John for so many years. We talked about the people who played the game, the places they played the game. Just tonight, walking through the underbelly of the Coliseum to come out here on the field, I realized I was in a place John loved more than almost any place on earth, the bowels of a stadium. He loved coaches, and you could truly hear the pain when he reminded us the firing of a coach wasn't just something for a sports talk show. It involved real people with real families, all being impacted. And Oakland. He really, really cared about Oakland. My one regret is that I could never change John's mind about NFL overtime rules. He truly believed that if you lost the coin flip, you should just quit griping and just win the game on defense. I would argue with him. I'd point out the data made it clear that the team that lost the coin flip lost a preponderance of the games in overtime. John just wouldn't hear it. Once a linebacker coach, always a linebacker coach. In wrapping this up, the thing is, John Madden was like all the rest of us. He was a regular guy, but also not a regular guy. A superstar because he was a regular guy, and at the end of the day, a Bay Area guy. He used to love to talk about somebody from around here who'd done something big by saying, hey, that guy's from where we're from. That's exactly the point. America loved him, but we owned him. God bless you, Coach, and thank you for everything.
Thank you very much, Stan. Wonderful job. Well, this night is titled One More Night in Oakland, but for many Raiders fans, one Monday night game for Madden's Raiders. Well, that was perhaps more special than any other. A December night in 1976 with clear playoff implications. Let's watch and remember.
The Raiders' 13th game meant a lot. Oakland's 11-1 record guaranteed home field advantage throughout the playoffs. But the fate of the Steelers and Bengals would be determined on Monday Night Football.
The scenario is this. We beat the Bengals, the Steelers are in, the Bengals are out. We lose to the Bengals are in, the Steelers are out.
So the thinking was they don't want to play Pittsburgh. They want to play Cincinnati, so they're going to go lose. That's the worst thing that you can say about someone, that they lost on purpose. Just for the sake of your organization, just for the sake of football, just for the sake of what's right. You got to go win.
The Raiders were a collection of renegades, but while some might accuse them of cheating an opponent, they would never cheat the game.
Back is Stabler, pumps once, goes down the middle of Casper, wide open, touchdown Raiders!
I couldn't even think of an NFL team ever laying down, especially on Monday night, especially against a team like the Bengals, because we hated them too. We hated everybody.
Stabler rolling to the left, throws a quick touchdown to Casper!
We just kept pounding these guys. Coach wanted them annihilated, and we did it to him.
Looks into the end zone, fires, Paletnikov, touchdown Raiders!
We knocked Cincinnati out of the playoffs.
Branch one-on-one with Riley, a leaping catch, touchdown Raiders!
And we put Pittsburgh in. That Monday night game was the most proud game that I ever coached in my life. You know, I don't know any other way to play. And thank goodness my players didn't either.
We knew that moment would get some love here, a huge win on the way to an even larger season. Our next speaker knows plenty about huge wins as a man who has hoisted the Lombardi Trophy himself, an NFL Coach of the Year, a Super Bowl champion, the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, and a dear friend of John Madden's. Please welcome Andy Reid.
I'm glad I'm out of spitting distance. It's great to be in the black hole. Listen, I first met Coach Madden about 30 plus years ago, my first year in Green Bay. He took me in like one of his own. He said, "You played offensive line?" I said, "I did." He said, "You're in." I was in the club officially. Coach taught me to appreciate every day, every game, every play of every game. He taught me not to back off what I knew would be the best for the National Football League. Taught me that coaches weren't the hamburger flippers in the National Football League. That we had a voice, and if properly presented, people would listen. Roger Goodell and the owners. Commissioner Goodell asked Coach to put together a committee of coaches, present-day coaches, that could review the rules and regulations of the National Football League. I got a call from Coach Madden to be on that committee, and I was proud of it. As were the other coaches that were also on the committee. I got to work hand in hand with a great coach, John Madden, and it was an honor. His relentless trust in his own common sense, suggestions to change the game for its betterment, probably drove Commissioner Goodell crazy. But it was awesome to watch his beautiful mind formulate each want. He taught me never to lose my childish love for life. I remember a time we played the 49ers, and Coach met me down in San Francisco. I called him when I got there. It was a 2-day trip from Philadelphia. And I'm sitting on the 30th floor, and I'm called Coach on my cell phone Saturday before a walkthrough. And I look, as I'm talking to him, I look down 30 floors above, and I see this little blue hat. And there's a man sitting down at an open cafe in the middle of downtown San Francisco, and he's talking to everybody that walks by. And I keep hearing on my cell phone, "How you doing?" And I go, "Coach, are you at an open cafe right in the middle of San Francisco below me?" And he goes, "Yes, I'm down here." I said, "Are you wearing a blue hat?" He goes, "Yes." I said, "Coach, I could spit on your head right now. I'm 30 stories up." I said, "You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna call you when I get back from the walkthrough." He said his apartment was right across the street, so I came back, I called him in his apartment. Don't forget the childish part. So I called Coach, and I said, "Where's this apartment?" He says, "I'm kitty corner." I said, "Well, I'm right across from you." I said, "I'm standing in the window in the corner." So all of a sudden I see the curtains moving out of the way, and the couch moves out of the way, and here's Coach. I can't give the rest of my talk. I put 5 note cards together, 1 minute per note card. Thank you. Anyways, I see the curtains move, I see the couch move, and here's Coach Madden. So I said, I count the floors, he's on like the 18th floor. I said, "Coach, I'm about 15 floors up, just take a peek." So I'm up there and I'm doing this in the mirror, in the window, and it's tinted, and then we see each other. And it's like 2 little fat kids in 5th grade at a candy store going, we see each other, we see each other. It was a beautiful thing. Also, I look forward to Friday nights. Friday nights is Triple D, diners, drive-ins, and dives. Coach and I like to eat, which I think is obvious. And we would grade Guy Fieri on the meals that he was checking out. And we would say, does Guy like it or doesn't like it? Is this a good meal or a bad meal? If it's a good meal, we got to have that bad boy. And we would proceed, him in Northern California, me in Kansas City, we'd proceed to go get the burrito. If the burrito was on, or the hot dog was on, or the hamburger was on, we had to have one that night. Thank you, Guy Fieri. He taught me that a sense of humor goes a long way, especially with players and really people in general. You saw the Brett Favre picture here. It wasn't always like that. So as Mooch can testify. So Coach Madden had an issue if he smelled somebody's gas. And Brett Favre had a lot of gas. But on this day, during a production meeting, we're on the road, and Brett Favre had a plan. He was a big-time prankster, as Coach Madden was. So Brett had gotten his hands on a little bottle of Morning Breeze. It was sulfur, and it smelled like natural gas, like Brett's natural gas. So during their production meeting, Brett had this plan. He was going to get Coach Madden to gag. So he took, during the production meeting, he sprinkled this Morning Breeze on Coach's feet. And I sat outside the door, and here comes Coach Madden through this thing like he used to make his guys drive the 7-man sled. Gagging all the way out, cherry red, and he looked at me and he goes, "This quarterback here is unbelievable. I love this guy." Coach loved being one of the guys. He loved the common human. Most of all, he loved his beautiful wife, Virginia, the tough farm girl. He loved his boys, and he loved his grandkids. Coach Madden loved life, and life loved him back. Coach was able to turn everything into gold, and we got to ride on those big golden shoulders of his. I'm still working on getting these cars together. Doggone. John Madden is in heaven now. It's 100 times bigger than the Hall of Fame. The busts are now alive. He's constantly talking to the greats of all sports and telling them why football is the greatest sport of all. God has asked him to be careful flailing those big arms of his. John, we have a packed house up here. Look over there. Pete Rozelle is still hiding from Al Davis. The past officials are still hiding behind Pete Rozelle. The sideline polar bear has arrived. He's here. And he is ranting. Turdunkins for everybody. We will make heaven even a better place than it already is. Pat Summerall and John Madden are together again. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost bow to the echo of this holy reunion. Their play-by-play has brought a peaceful excitement to the heavens. All is well. We love you, Coach.
Andy Reid, ladies and gentlemen, one more chance to serenade him. Well, thank you, Andy. From the players to the coaches to the friends, for John Madden, football was always the passion. But the greatest and deepest purpose, that was his family. And so was sharing the game with them. One of John's greatest joys.
I think Dad's legacy, he certainly had a hand in building the foundation of everything that we're celebrating these days, the silver and black, pride and poise, commitment to excellence. He lived it, he embodied it, he ingrained it into the players. He took it from the locker room out onto the football field. He made it happen.
I think it was legacy. It is the Raiders. My thought doesn't go to his broadcasting. It doesn't go to his video game. It goes to the Raiders. It's not so much just John Madden, his legacy, as the Raiders of the 70s. You can't put a price on that. It's the greatest thing.
He's reached the top in everything he's ever done. His Emmys, his Super Bowl victory. He's been good at everything he's ever done. Being a father, being a husband. But he had a good teacher, Al.
There will not ever be another John Madden.
This night celebrates John Madden, but also honors and recognizes his family. It's been such a privilege to get to know them over this past year, and now to speak on their behalf, please give a warm welcome to John's son, Mike Madden.
I'm going to weigh down my paper so I don't have to go chase it. When Dad passed, a lot of things go through your mind, and we were racing around as a family, and we knew we wanted to do this. We wanted to do a celebration of life. But when you take 85 years in the life of John Madden, that's kind of hard to wrap your head around. So then you start with what would he want? And he'd want to do it in Oakland. He loved Oakland. And Oakland loved him back. And I was in SoFi Stadium yesterday, but tonight I'm in a football stadium. So how in the heck could you not celebrate the life of John Madden anywhere else but the Oakland Coliseum? But the first thing, again, I thought we're thinking back, what would Dad want? What would Dad want? What would he want? And on this night, the first thing that he would want is he would want to honor and celebrate the great career of Cliff Branch that finally got recognized by the Hall of Fame. Those seats right over there, you can see the little jagged line. Those get removed, and Cliff's corner was right there. Anyway. After Cliff, he would want people to speak, and he loved his coaching fraternity. He loved his coaching brotherhood. He loved the coaches committee. So, who would we want to have speak? And we'd start with Andy Reid. Andy Reid had late night phone calls, and they've been going back for 20 years. And every day after Dad would speak to Andy, he would be fired up. He'd be like, "Hey, I talked to Andy last night, and do you ever think about this? I mean, Andy and I talked about this." And sometimes it was X's and O's, and sometimes it was hoagies and ribs. But he always he had a great relationship with Andy, and having Coach Reid here is a real pleasure, and Dad's looking down and loving that part of it. And the same thing with Coach Rivera. Coach Rivera would come out and visit in Pleasanton for multiple days, and Dad and he would talk football and just X's and O's, and Dad loved that. And after Coach Rivera would take off, Dad would seem like 10 years younger. He would just revitalize. He was just a younger guy after that. And then Coach Mariucci. Dad loved the bocce tournament. Later in life, that was one of the biggest things. It was the first thing he put on his calendar, and he wanted to beat you every single year. So we got the coaches thing covered. And the other thing he would want, he loved his players. That came out of all the videos. Having Henry Lawrence, his right tackle, sing a song. Dad would love that. So he's looking down and he's enjoying that. Did you notice that we lined up Henry at right tackle? There's a lot of football on this stage. And if you got to balance it out. You can't be all big linemen and football. So how do you balance it out? And Dad had a great relationship with Leslie Visser, and I was watching all the Super Bowl festivities, and there are dozens of women talking about football on TV today. But 30 years ago, they needed somebody to lead the way and be a trailblazer, and Leslie Visser was that woman. She paved the way. And he loved his relationship with KCBS. Like Stan said, he woke up at 8:15 and did that show every single day for years and years. And so having KCBS represented here by Stan is something that he would want to do. The Bay Area and Bay Area radio was a big part of what he did. And the irony wouldn't be lost on him that the skinniest guy on this stage is representing the biggest and best eating day of the year, and that was the KCBS barbecue. He also, again, think of the players that he brought out to this sideline in this stadium. He always surrounded himself with excellence and greatness. And he would want Michael Mant and their team that are put on the program tonight, and Tom Rinaldi as an MC to tie it all together. So thank you guys. Like I said, I was down in the Super Bowl yesterday, and I was down all week, and a lot of people were expressing their condolences and sorrow and things, and I got dozens and dozens of well wishes, and it was great, and it was nice to be in the football community. But I want to point out two that were very special. One was Andrea Kramer, and the other was Charles Haley. And Andrea Kramer, she was telling me about her career and her relationship with Dad, and how he had told her about, you got to do this, and mentoring this, and encouraging for that. And Andrea, and she was going back decades. She was going back into the 90s, and I had no idea. And then she said, and then finally, the conversation I'll never forget with your dad is I was going to broadcast my first live game as an analyst, and she goes, I was scared to death. And I called your dad, and he said, Andrea, you've been working your entire life. You've worked and prepared for this forever. Just be yourself. You're going to be great. And she says, when John Madden tells you to be yourself, you're going to be great. He gives you the confidence to be yourself and be great. She goes, I'll never forget that. And I hope, then the day before that, we were going into the NFL Honors Show. And Dad has walk-by guys and stop-by guys. And you got to know the difference. But when I've traveled with Dad over the years, it's easy to recognize me when I'm on my dad's hip or, 3 steps behind him. So we see Charles Haley over there in the plaza. And I'm thinking, does he need to be bothered by me right now? And then I kind of think about what Dad would want. And he goes, no, Charles is a stop-by guy. You stop by and you say hi to Charles. And I'd met Charles 10 or 15 times over the years. But it's always, 3 steps behind my dad. So I go to approach Charles, and I want to make it easy. I want to announce my name, so I come in with a handshake. And by the time I said, hey, Charles, Mike Madden. By the time I got to D in Madden, Charles Haley, he had me by the hand, and he pulls me in. He says, I know who you are. And he hugs me close, and he starts whispering in my ear all the things that Dad meant to him and how much he loved Dad. And this was not a bro hug, fist closed, good to see you, man. This was a hug, from two guys who lost somebody that they loved very much. And the funny thing that I realized that there's Andrea Kramer and there's Charles Haley, and there's dozens, if not hundreds or thousands of people in between, that they're going to carry a piece of John Madden with them for the rest of their lives. And I believe that. And I think when you hear the stories of the people on the stage, I think they're all going to carry a piece of John Madden with them for the rest of their lives. And it's a sad time having lost him, but he's still with us. He's inside of all of us, and he will be for the rest of our lives. Thank you for that, because I needed a second. I was always encouraged to finish with a story. Tell a story about a side of your dad that the public doesn't know yet. And we all know that he passed away 3 days after the documentary, which is a twist of irony. But he also passed away after his last grandson had played his last high school football game. So he got to see all of his grandsons play all their high school football. But at the very last game, last March, the game was at Castlemont High School, but it was a loosely put together game. Hayward had canceled. The team was Bishop O'Dowd. Castlemont said, we'll play you on like a couple hours notice. And Dad had always, for about 7 or 8 years, we had to get his car in a position where he could see the game. Well, we didn't think we could do that on 2 or 3 hours notice. So he goes, I probably won't even go to the game. I can't get there. So we go, come on down, try. So they drive down to Castlemont, and the people at Castlemont High were so gracious. They opened the gates, they ushered him through and around and opened another gate, and they got his car right. It was so close to the field, it was darn near in the way. And we play the game, and after the game, he usually wants to talk about the game. But at this time, he says, these people at Castlemont, they're so nice. He goes, what can we do for the people at Castlemont, the kids at Castlemont? And from there, he couldn't get it out of his head. And he started, well, not just Castlemont, let's expand it. Let's do some other schools. And long story short, he put together a menu of about 24 East Bay schools, and 6 kids from Oakland last year in September. So this football game was in March. By September, he had already put together a program whereby 6 kids from Oakland started Cal Poly under scholarships that weren't around before Mom and Dad had visited Castlemont. So that's the kind of guy that he was. And you heard from Mom, she's going to match all the money. She's going to start the John Madden Foundation, and that's going to be for scholarships and other opportunities for the youth of Oakland. So Dad loved Oakland, and Oakland loved him back, and thank you very much.
Before we adjourn this celebration and this wonderful evening, we have one more piece of tape to show you. The pinnacle moment of John Madden's football life, which resonates especially deeply here in Oakland.
John, how's it feel?
Great. Waited a long time for it.
John was not the smallest coach in the league. John's kind of a big guy, and carrying him off the field was kind of a task, even for our biggest guys.
There's the gun sounding the end of the game. John Madden goes on the shoulders of his players.
Such a great sight to see him smile that way.
John Madden's grin is from ear to ear. He looks like a slip watermelon.
Well, I was surprised they could get me out. And the guys were carrying me. They tripped over a photographer. And it was just like an avalanche. We all fell down, which was kind of fitting. You carry the coach off and you drop him. And that was kind of the way I was and kind of the way the Raiders were in those days.
It was just typical Madden. The biggest kid of them all was John, enjoying every single bit of it. And he had a whole bunch of reasons to win that Super Bowl game, and he got it done. He became that great coach that got him in the Hall of Fame that day. Great guy to know and great guy to have as a friend.
After a decade of dominance, the Oakland Raiders had finally earned a championship ring.
We wanted silver and black, and then we wanted a football, and then we wanted a lot of diamonds. We wanted more diamonds than anyone had before, and we wanted to be bigger than the Steelers.
The big stone in the middle represents Super Bowl 11. The 16 stones that make up the football represents the 16 victories. It has the score of the AFC Championship game against Pittsburgh, and it has pride on one side, poise on the other.
It's probably the closest thing that's an object that's me. This ring, I'm sure, means the same thing to almost all of my teammates. So proud, it says world champion Oakland Raiders.
No one can ever take it away from you. In 1976, we won this ring, and it's always ours. But bigger than the ring is the memories. You look at it and you remember all those players, and not only the big stars, but you remember them all, how they sacrificed, you remember what they did. You earned it, and you earned it by playing hard, and you earned it by winning. You earned it by being a champion.
On behalf of all who shared their memories, on behalf of all the speakers, most importantly, on behalf of the Madden family, to all who gathered and joined in this celebration of John, his legacy, and his life, thank you to Oakland, and have a great night.